garbage on this week?
First up is approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion. Motion and support. Any changes or additions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next up is public comment. You have 5 minutes to address the board, the public. I see all staff here. It looks like we have no public comment. Moving on to committee items, being the minutes. Looking for a motion. Motion and support. Any needed changes or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next up is appointments. We've got 2 out of 3 appointments to make, or boards. First up, we have the Ag Preservation Board. The current member is Nancy Hawley. She's an applicant, as well as David Van Hoof, and we'd be looking for a nomination.
I nominate Nancy Hawley.
Any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Nancy Hawley's name will be forwarded on. Next is the Department on Aging Advisory Council. The current member is Willie Anderson, and the applicant for that position is David Van Hoof.
I'll nominate David Van Hoof, please.
Second.
A motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. David Van Hoof's name will be forwarded. We also have a second opening with no names for it. That would be Troy Ganton's position. And the same with the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, an open position we'll continue to advertise for. Next up, we have the Sheriff's mid-year report. Sheriff Rand.
Morning.
Morning.
I'll go through this real quickly. Inmate bookings down a little bit this year. A variety of reasons for that. I think some of it had to do with weather and so forth, but I can't explain a lot of it. It's been a real cyclical thing with our population. Our population hovers right around 364 daily. That has enabled us to move some people around, get some maintenance done on some of our cells, and take care of some maintenance issues that we've had in both facilities. Doctors and nurses calls, as you can see, obviously a big part of what we do. Mental health, again, a large part of what we do in the jail setting. We are on target to meet our goal of 1.1 million, could even exceed that total revenues from the jail this year. It won't be reflected in the current budget. If you see the budget, we're about 3 months behind in payment from the state of Michigan for the boarders and so forth, and straddle cells and even our parolees. So, but it will usually by March of the following year we'll get all that revenue in. A few of the things we've been doing, and of note, we had 4 assaults on staff this 6-month period from January through June. 1 requiring a couple of our corrections officers required medical attention, stitches for assaults. And this again is part of the increased population that we have has mental illness, violent. We've had quite a few people in there that have had some real issues, and obviously assaultive on staff. Full body scanner that you folks approved last year was installed at the Chandler Road facility. That's helped us keep down on the amount of contraband coming in. We did have a long-term MDOC boarder that received his high school diploma out there last month, which is another good thing. Dan Evans said that was the last diploma he was giving out. So it's worked out well. We've had 3 actual, these are not GEDs, these are high school diplomas given out there. Hopefully it'll slow down the rate of recidivism in our facilities, and maybe DOC as well. Just replaced a lot of the bedding and supplies that we have at both the Chandler Road and Wesley Street facility, and we're glad to say we have no maggots out there. But I was concerned about that. We've double-checked and contacted our food vendor to make sure that there's no issues out there, so we don't have the same problems that DOC's been having lately. Patrol Division, year-to-date, 14,000 and some audit incidents, concealed pistol license applications. As you see are way down, I think I said the last time, those no longer, if you go from a gun show or a vendor to person, you no longer need a concealed pistol permit to come in and grab one of those from our office. It's not necessary. So actually, let me take a step back. I'm talking about two different things here. The pistol purchase permits are no longer required. The concealed pistol license applications are still pretty consistent, around 2,000 a year. But again, you don't need a permit any longer if you come into, if you just go to like Shoe Packs or something and buy a pistol. 807 arrests year to date, 133 OWI arrests. I suspect that'll go up the second half of the year. It was pretty slow the first half. And then you can see citations and misdemeanor citations are a little bit down so far. And again, I attribute some of that to the nasty weather we had early in the year. Major crash team, we work with Michigan State Police and Blackman Township to complete the fatal accidents, complicated accidents. We assisted Napoleon Township on a fatal crash at M50 and Benton Road recently. We also responded with Michigan State Police to 127 just north of McDevitt Ave for a fatal accident where a truck crossed the center line and hit someone head on. And lastly, we investigated an accident with Michigan State Police in Waterloo Township at Mount Hope and Waterloo-Munith Road, again, where somebody failed to stop at an intersection, striking someone, killing them. Major crimes, I had a couple others on here, but Jerry wouldn't be happy if I let those out just yet, so probably next report we'll give you those. But we've got a couple of big cases going right now. Of late, the latest one we had was multiple receiving, stealing stolen property. A lot of this occurred down in the Hanover, Liberty area. Breaking into houses, breaking into unlocked cars and locked cars both, stealing whatever wasn't nailed down basically, but we've got suspects in custody and they're being charged. Just a refresher, the winter was not kind to us this year. We were out on the freeways an awful lot. Much appreciation to all the other agencies that assisted us, and frankly we assisted them as well as in Blackman and Leone and some of those places where a lot of those crashes took place. Give you a chance to take a look at the JNet numbers thus far. As you know, we have 2 members on the JNet team. You can see if you look down towards the bottom, methamphetamine is still a big deal. Multiple meth labs discovered the past couple months, really. Not so much finished product, but there have been some labs we've discovered and turned over to JNet for remediation. Heroin's still out there, obviously, and very cheap, so that's still a problem. Some of the bigger cases, JNet's working. Obviously crack cocaine and guns found at a residence. Probably the biggest one we've had the past 6 months is dealing with the doctor in town who was prescribing mostly Vicodin, but controlled substances to a variety of people for sale on the street, we believe. That has yet to be vetted in court, but there's been 25 known suspects identified in that case. And then another meth case that we've got going currently with JNet and our personnel. Homeland Security, a couple of these items are coming up after this report. Number one is the Throwbot, and you can see it pictured there. I think, Julie, you asked me the question, what is it? And I said it looked like a wacky wall walker on steroids, and that's pretty much what it looks like. It's the paddle wheel looking thing there. It's a remote controlled vehicle that is supposed to, and we tested it a couple of years ago, be able to throw it through a window, throw it through a doorway, get it into a house. It'll sort of right itself, and you'll be able to gather intel from inside. It would work particularly well in some of the incidents we've had where we've had suicidal subjects, you hear a shot or something of that effect, and you aren't sure whether action's been taken or whether it was, so instead of sending personnel in, we could throw this in and help to identify what was happening in the residence. Again, it's probably be used primarily by the county-wide SRT team comprised of our department and the Jackson City Police Department, but available to anybody in the county that needed it. School Knox Box program, again, that's a program where we're trying to make sure that there's Knox boxes on every school building in the county using Homeland Security money, obviously. There's still some, I think we've got a couple issues to iron out with the state and federal government to make sure that this program goes through, but the hope is that the keys would be available. If you don't know what a Knox box is, it allows public safety personnel, if you ever see those little boxes on the side of a building with a little key in it, it's called a Knox box. You can store items in there, whether it be blueprints, keys to the interior of the school, that type of thing. And we want those available countywide so everybody has access in the event of some incident, police, fire, EMS. Weather siren upgrade, that was another project to enable us to potentially, if we wanted to, make all of the sirens in Jackson County, the tornado sirens, weather sirens, call them what you will, two-way so that we could communicate back and forth and know whether one was functioning or not. It would require upgrades, future upgrades on the other end, but currently we have a kind of a patchwork of half of our sirens, or probably less than half, are the old type where we send out a signal and the siren goes off. We assume, but we don't get any feedback as to whether they call it the chopper, was rotating and whether the siren was rotating the way it needs to. The rest of the sirens, post really late 90s on, have an interactive feature which communicates back and lets us know whether it worked, whether what the failure was, if there was a failure. So we are upgrading at least our equipment, so if the townships choose to upgrade on their end, we can get feedback and have them, because all the townships own the sirens. Jackson County really only owns, to my knowledge, one siren on the courthouse. All the rest are owned by the townships and city and maintained by them. And the last thing, again with Homeland Security money, the local planning team approved, and it was approved by the state and federal government, the above the line below course for some of our Jackson County hazmat team. I believe members of both Blackman Public Safety and the Jackson City Fire Department went to that training. Several exercises this past 6 months. We had with potential for severe flooding with the melting snow, we had a webinar, invited public officials in and discussed potential what we would do, how would we react to some of the potential flooding. It was looking pretty grim when we thought there would be a quick warm-up, but thankfully the weather cooperated and we didn't have as much as we thought. And in particular, we were looking at the Grand River north of town in Sarah's district. There was certainly the potential for overtopping the banks and creating some issues up that way. And damage assessment training was held in June at the Jackson County EOC, and the hazmat plans for 302 sites have all been updated as of June. I'll just let you peek at the numbers there for dispatch calls for service and total fire calls for service. If you want, there's a copy of this on there too, if you want to look at it, review it later, or have any questions about it. Total dispatches. Dispatch project is still underway, moving a little slower than we'd like, but it's turning out very nice. Drywall's up, it looks sharp. I think Rick's coming before you, or somebody's coming before you today, get lighting approved for it, and generator approved for it. It's going to be pretty state-of-the-art, at least for the near term. And I'm proud to say that 1,300 hours of the work that's been performed on the dispatch center is done by inmate labor, along with Jim Vandenberg, who's been very good to work with those folks and get that job done. And the other thing that occurred the last 6 months, we have a redundant method for dispatching fire. There was some frustration out in the field if you have a fire pager and you were somewhere where you may not hear the fire page. There is a system available which, through our CAD system, sends the page out via smartphone. So if you're a firefighter and you're crawling under a car, or you're down in the basement somewhere, or working your job wherever you are, you will still get a text message letting you know that there's a fire call. We've gotten very positive feedback from fire service on this, and probably are going to start, and we have already started migrating that to police, so that if an incident were to occur within a jurisdiction, hopefully we can do it by microcode, so that if, say, somebody in your jurisdiction were sent to a homicide, you could immediately get a text message instead of waiting for a call from one of your personnel. And I want to thank American One Federal Credit Union again for the donation of AEDs. They bought us $30,000 worth of defibrillators for our cars and marine craft, and those are already out there and deployed, and all our personnel are trained on them, so we're very grateful to them. Any questions for me?
Sheriff, just one question. The e-ticketing, I'm not, is it fully implemented with your agency yet? And have you noticed any difference in the numbers yet or not?
That question came up last week in a meeting with Region 2, and we have a couple forces at work here. We are using it, it's deployed fully.
Yeah, we started using it about 2 weeks ago. We've been working out bugs with the printers and so on and so forth, but yeah, we're using it. I don't think the city police department is using it yet. I think they're working on getting that up and running, but I think all the township agencies have been using it for about a month or so, or a couple months. The only issue we have left open is the interface between IATech and our New World record system, and getting that interface built between New World and IATech and getting that information automatically put into our system. That's the only thing we're really waiting for.
Which means that the tickets are being dumped into the court system, but not into New World, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Julie?
Thank you. I have two questions. One, the first one is regarding the educational opportunities for inmates. You had mentioned the opportunity to obtain a high school diploma through JPS. Is that still continuing for any inmates that are able to do so?
Yes. It's a very small population, though. It's between 17 and 19 years. There's some thought, well, I hesitate to say this, but technically you could probably provide it to people aged up to age 26 if they had special need, but that's a whole other animal. You're familiar with that, though.
I am, most likely if they have IEPs. So the other piece of the question then is, are GED services available?
Not currently.
Okay, so
But this is really, I think, a much better deal for everyone, including JPS. The next goal I have is to try to get this available for our female population as well at Wesley Street. And that's been approved by JPS. They've got the go-ahead if we're able to make that happen.
Excellent. Okay, good. The second issue, I was wondering, the state law has changed on the CPL process, and now it's going to a state-level board instead of a county gun board. How will that affect you? Us?
Well, it'll lessen. I think we were more diligent than, let me start by saying that. I think we were more diligent than most counties as it pertained to getting a CPL. We had a checklist of about 20 different places we went to look for information, because it's not, what I picture happening in the future with the state CPL, issuing CPLs, is that they will probably run a CCH, a criminal history, on someone and determine by that criminal history or a Secretary of State report whether there's an issuance of a gun or not, or of a CPL, I'd take that back. So what we did is look through D12 website, which is our district court. We looked through our own AGIS website, which is countywide law enforcement. We communicated with the state, got their information from what theirs called is called LEMS, or one of those acronyms, and we went through a variety of steps to make sure that whoever's getting the CPL, because one of the things you can reject a CPL for is for repeated police contact. What I picture happening is that will no longer be the case, because unless the state chooses to be diligent enough to request all those records from us, now we could still proceed in that direction, but I don't know what the edict will be from the state to MSP. What we will continue to do, though, is to provide, because it still goes through the clerk's office, and we'll continue to provide the fingerprints, because we have that available to us, and we've got a great partnership with our clerk, so that's going to continue to work the way it has. It'll just be, the short answer to your question, it'll be a little less work for us every month looking through all those records. Is that January 1? I think it was a January 1 timeframe, I think. So.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Sheriff. And you're up next, I think, with the Throwbot.
Yep. The Throwbot I described a little bit. You saw a picture of it. It is pass-through money only. It's using Homeland Security money. We have to pay the upfront cost and will be reimbursed. It's been approved by the state and federal government already, so it's an item that I'm asking for board approval so that we can provide this to the SRT team.
I jumped over one of them, but still, if we could have a motion on this. Motion to approve. Motion and support. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Sheriff, my apology, I jumped over the New World Software and Server Certificate, which is you also.
That is, we already have the server purchased. The item that is under consideration is converting the server to the latest platform so that we can receive further upgrades from New World, be able to implement all the changes that we're making to the GIS mapping system. The changes, whenever there's an error in the GIS map, the dispatch center forwards the changes to Scott downstairs, and the changes are updated, but it's not getting to our system because it's not communicating well with the ArcGIS 10.0 or whatever it is. But we need to upgrade the server, or at least have it built to receive it. The server itself is upgraded. It is recommended by IT that this be replaced, or at least be upgraded, moved over to the new platform. And I'm asking for approval for this project as well. It'll be paid for by surcharge money.
Looking for a motion? Motion and support. Sheriff, you know when it'll be, the upgrade would be pushed out? Because I hear they are having problems with, is it 10.3, is that what it is? Is it 10.3, the version?
I had heard the bugs were worked out of it, but
Hopefully by the time we implement it, they will be.
yes.
I think maybe Steve's.
Not going to 3 yet? Okay, 10.1.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you very much.
Prosecutor Jarzinka.
Got a PowerPoint here. Let's see if it's on here.
City Council.
Yes. Thank you, Adam. Oh, there you go. Great. Yeah, I just want to go full screen right here. A little over right there.
Use plastic curtains. That means you guys can use curtains now in the city.
Right there. Two over. Right there. One more. There you go. How do I advance this with this? How do I advance it with it? With the clicker?
Get them right
Just
back, right.
the mouse once, or you can put the down arrow. Okay. Either way. Okay, great. Thank you, Adam. Good morning. This is my report. Basically, it's going over our results from 2013 and going into 2014. 2013 was a very busy year for the prosecutor's office and continues to be so for this year. Just an overview. Basically, our office involves a number of attorneys. We've got 12 attorneys plus myself. We've got a chief assistant. We've got 10 assistant prosecuting attorneys, 7 support staff in the office, 2 part-time investigators. Victims' rights, we've got 3 advocates. Family division, we've got an assistant prosecutor and 1 support staff and 2 part-time investigators. In our main office, the 2 part-time investigators are basically dedicated to cold case investigations. Cases, the screen here, basically our cases have been going up the caseload. If you look on that, our 2013 actual warrants reviewed were 3,576 warrants submitted to the office last year, and that was an increase. The warrants authorized are 2,751. Warrants denied 825. Case reviewed per assistant approximately 358. And again, that kind of boils it down. Plus, this screen also indicates the number of juvenile petitions reviewed. In 2013, it was almost 1,000. And you might recall this past, not this past weekend, but the weekend past on July 4th, we had some juvenile shootings we authorized on. Two of those were basically charging two 16-year-olds as adults in those cases as well. Recovery court, or also known as drug court. Last year, we had 60 cases reviewed. 49 of those defendants were admitted to the drug court. 4 successful graduated from the program last year. That's a pretty busy program. We've got one assistant who's dedicated to that court. As you may know, Judge Susan Beebe is the judge assigned to that court. The assistant prosecutor assigned to that court currently is Jennifer Walker. And that's a primary job of that court is to handle drug court defendants. That varies. I know it's been as high as 75 people in the court, defendants that is. And normally it fluctuates between 50 to 75 defendants who are in the court at any one time. But that's a pretty significant caseload. They have 2 court sessions a month, every other Friday. There's also, with those Friday court sessions, there's a team meeting of the drug court, which the assistant prosecutor participates in for about an hour, hour and a half. Usually 12:30 they meet, and then they break and go into a courtroom session about 2 o'clock, and that courtroom session usually goes from 2 to 3 or 3:30 on those Friday sessions. In addition to that, that assistant prosecutor attends screening meetings as defendants may apply to the recovery court. That assistant prosecutor will meet with the judge and the drug court team, defense attorney assigned to that team, to decide whether or not a participant is a candidate that's going to be accepted into the program. Mental health court, it's another specialty court. That's Judge Claren. The assistant prosecutor assigned to that court is Katie Brannigan. In addition to her normal duties trying criminal cases, that likewise, like drug court, takes place usually every other Friday in the afternoon. Again, they have a team meeting. They discuss defendants who are applying for mental health court, also the current cases, the current defendants are in that court, to see how they're doing or not doing well. In 2013, we had 81 cases reviewed for mental health court, 31 participating defendants, 12 successfully completed the program last year. And you may have read something in the news, our Child Advocacy Center, that was begun by my predecessor, Prosecutor Hank Zavislak. It's up and running. Last year in 2013 was probably the most successful use of that center. You note on the screen 162 requests for interviews of child sexual assault victims, which is a pretty significant number. We always have an assistant prosecutor present every time there is a review. And in addition to that, there's usually every 2 weeks there's what they call MDT, is a multidisciplinary team meeting in which different detectives from different police agencies meet with the current part-time director of the center and the forensic interviewer and assistant prosecutor and decide current cases we have going on at the Advocacy Center. The steering committee meeting basically is it's a group of agencies represented by various police detectives and assistant prosecutors, myself, meet and to decide if there's any issues with the program. Currently, one of the big things that's going on with the CAC is seeking accreditation from the National Accreditation for Advocacy Centers. And that's on track. After about 4 or 5 months, at the end of last year, beginning this year, we had a number of meetings to prepare an application. That's been submitted. There's actually going to be an accreditation site review of the CAC coming this September. And why that's important is that if you get fully accredited, then certainly it opens up the doors for funding, which certainly would help the Advocacy Center now, because it's currently operating more or less on a shoestring budget under the umbrella of Catholic Charities of Jackson, Lenawee, and Hillsdale counties. And so the additional funding will allow the CAC to have a full-time director and a full-time forensic interviewer. So we've had great results with our sexual assault prosecution cases that come through there. You get a chance to really see how a child victim will do at the interview center, because you've got a trained forensic interviewer of the child in one room, and then through a mirror, or a glass mirror, the detectives and the assistant prosecutor can look and see how the child victim does and what will be the strengths and weaknesses of that witness at a trial. So it's been really helpful to us to try to gauge how successful a case can be to go to court. So we do have an appellate prosecutor, Jerry Scrodenborough. He's one of the best in the state of Michigan. And just 2013, the number of briefs he filed in the various courts, district court, circuit court, Court of Appeals, 97 briefs filed, Michigan Supreme Court, 28, and the Federal District Court, 27, the United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, 9 briefs. Jerry argued 10 Court of Appeals argument last year, 1 Sixth Circuit Court argument down in Cincinnati, and 1 Michigan Supreme Court argument. Trials last year, we had 29 circuit court trials, 59 district court trials, 502 family court cases, hearings, or trials, including 33 termination trials, abuse and neglect court. And just to note about the abuse and neglect assistant prosecutor, that's a pretty heavy docket. I know the board has looked at the budget for DHS cases, but we currently, I think our last meeting a couple months ago, our current docket for abuse and neglect alone was about 355 some cases. And these are a little bit different than our normal criminal cases because, one, they are civil, but two, they normally take a number of months to basically go from start to finish. And those files, even electronically, get very thick, very involved because you have a number of updated reports from hearing to hearing. We have one assistant prosecutor, that's all that prosecutor does, dedicated to prosecuting those cases. That's Monica Stevens. Typically, the way it's structured in court now is that 1 week it's Judge Diane Rapley hearing the cases. The next week it's Judge Rick LaFlamme. Tuesdays are typically the trial day, which there are a number of trials set both in the morning and the afternoon. It's an all-day affair. Wednesday is review days for those cases. The other days, basically, the assistant is preparing for the trials for the upcoming week. And sometimes those judges may, because of their scheduling, set a trial date that's either Monday or Friday of a given week, too. So it's quite a busy docket. Assistant prosecutors normally participate in pretrial conferences, preliminary exams in our felony cases in district court, motions, formal hearings, sentencing hearings. And last year alone, 2013, our office generated 10,977 subpoenas for our adult cases. For juvenile court, we had 164. So I thought the number of subpoenas for adult cases was almost 11,000. It's a very busy office. We do impact the community through our website, meet with citizens once a month for coffee meetings, take questions. Office participates in a number of different boards, Safe Community, Domestic and Sexual Violence Coordinating Council, Gun Board, although that's being phased out. We do have a Human Trafficking Crime Force Task Force Planning Committee, Child Death Review, and this year, last few months, I've been involved with the Michigan School Justice Partnership with different groups and agencies in the area trying to work on the issue of truancy, reducing that. Also participating on the Advocacy Center Steering Committee and multidisciplinary team. In addition to that, we do have an assistant prosecutor that does work on financial scams on seniors in our area. That's Katie Brannigan. Who also goes out and does presentations to different groups in the community to raise public awareness and also to pursue those cases as well. We've given legal updates to our local law enforcement. Our second annual one was this past April. Also, I give a presentation to the City of Jackson Police Department in the fall, once a year. Our cold case unit has investigated a number of different cases. We have a cold case coming to trial July 28th, People versus George Alexander. It's a case from 1975. In addition, at the end of last year, I changed our charging policy regarding the charge of resisting opposing a police officer, which has impacted the court budget as far as what's being charged or spent for resisting opposing officer cases. We roughly have about 200 or so of those cases, 200 to 300. For the court-appointed contract, that would be $350 a case on those. But what was happening was that a number of those cases are charged where, let's say, a defendant runs away from an officer, but there's no assault or injury in the officer. What was happening in the past was that those were being charged, the fee was being assessed by the court for a court-appointed attorney, what is being reduced in attempt RNO, which is a one-year misdemeanor. So policy change was basically to just charge an attempt RO up front, which is the one-year misdemeanor in cases where there was an injury to the officer. If it's a running away situation, and that would basically, the projected impact was to save $35,000 to $70,000 in a given year. In addition, we were instituted doing drug forfeiture cases with JNET and the state police. I worked with the new DHS director and the past DHS director trying to reduce our cost. We've had last year found out that we really were spending a lot of money on our expert witnesses for our abuse and neglect cases. Typically, when you bring in a doctor for a trial or any hearing, it's going to run anywhere between $800 and $1,000 per appearance. When you factor in going to court, preparing for the testimony, and actually giving the testimony. And so what happened is that after discussions with the DHS directors, both past and current, reached a situation where DHS has been paying for those experts, and we are not subpoenaing them unless there's an agreement that they will pay that for those cases. So that is going to produce significant savings, and it has already here in 2014. In addition, a couple last items there. Of the almost 3,600 warrants that come into our office, many of them are situations where the defendants are not actually lodged in jail. They're non-lodged. And so what I did when I took office was to change our system where all the warrants are going to one assistant prosecutor and basically divvy them up and assign different assistants, different police agencies. And that's worked quite effectively. I think it's created better communication between our office and the different police agencies so that they know what we're looking for in charging cases, and we have a better understanding what they're looking for too. I think it's worked really well, so pretty pleased with that. And then another item is in our major cases of using a technique of assigning two assistant prosecutors, a trial team for major cases such as murders and serious CSC cases of violent crimes. Again, the family division is one assistant, Kim Graham, runs that section on our office over on Lansing Avenue. One legal secretary and 2 part-time investigators. The family division cases have actually gone up a little bit, but they generally run between 700 and 800 cases between child support and paternity cases. So it's a pretty significant caseload. This indicates the number of meetings at that office with parents. 2013 actual was just over 1,400 meetings. Also part of our office on the 3rd floor of the county courthouse, we have a victims' rights office run by Sue Vogt, our coordinator. Last year, over 3,700 victims were notified of their rights. 53% decided to exercise them. We had over 2,300 people, victims and witnesses, who used our waiting room area up there. These again are the notifications for felonies and misdemeanors, juveniles. Again, notifications, pretty high numbers. And this year, 2014, we've had some significant trial results. The Camilla Gamut case, where she was alleged to have battered and murdered her boyfriend. That was tried this year successfully by a trial team of Chief Assistant Prosecutor Katie Rozmirski and Assistant Prosecutor Jennifer Walker, successfully first-degree murder conviction. Josephus Anderson was just tried this past month. It was an armed home invasion here in town by Nick Mahalko. And then also this spring, Tariq Scott. This was the Promise Bowl shooting that occurred last September after the game. Two groups walking back from the game. Trial team prosecuted that successfully. He was convicted of assault with intent to commit murder. There's a young teenager who was shot in the back of the head, but miraculously did not die. Next Monday, we've got a murder trial, People versus Marlon Thomas Jr., starting before Judge Wilson. Mentioned George Alexander. A CSC case, Jennifer Maynard, is convening August 25th, Judge McBain. The Eldon Huffman murder trial set for September 8th, Judge Wilson. Michael Edenberger set for September 22nd. That's the Indianapolis middle school principal. The CSC case set before Judge McBain. Finally, Amber Murphy case was resolved this spring. This is the lady who had taken care of her infant and been drinking and slept on the couch and suffocated her. That was a manslaughter plea. Overview, these are some of the courts we handle. It's quite busy. District Circuit appeals, neglect and abuse, child support, mental health. Mental health petitions, I just want to let you know that in addition to what we do is we handle, we have 2 assistants, and usually it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The hospital, people who are involuntarily committed to the hospital have to, we have to represent them by statute, or their family members. Whoever files a petition, normally a family member, we have to, by statute, if they request it, we have to be there. So normally there's 8 o'clock in the morning at the hospital, at the mental health facility or ward, the Anderson building. And so that's part of our duties as well. And normally that runs anywhere from 4 to 6 cases per week. Again, the number of cases. And that's what we're doing. This has continued to be another busy year, 2014. Any questions? No? Yes.
Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Jerry, for the excellent report. I've talked to you before, and I've talked to the sheriff, and the general feeling is illegal use of drugs is probably involved in about 80% of crimes committed in one form or another. And I look at the drug recovery court, 60 people applied, 49 were accepted, but only four succeeded. It doesn't look like we're making a lot of progress on turning drug abuse around. Is this reflective of the severity of the addictions these people have? Or it seems like a very low rate. 4 out of 49 people succeeded.
I don't think those numbers really give an accurate impression, because it's I was the assistant prosecutor assigned to the drug court for 4 years, and it's like a stream. It's a river. It's constantly moving. There are people getting admitted into the program, people getting kicked out of the program, and you do have some people succeed in the program. It's difficult to get into that program because there are a number of criteria that you have to meet, and you can't have violent felony convictions, for example. You can't have any criminal sexual conduct convictions, for example. You can't have anything that's really relating to violence, like having a firearm in a crime. Difficult to get in. First, the assistant prosecutor assigned to the court has a number of criteria to see if a person would even qualify or be eligible to apply. Then if that defendant wants to apply, then they have to apply, then they have to go before another little screening committee to see if they will be a good candidate, because you're right. There are people who just drop out of the program because they have drug addictions and they can't succeed. But I certainly have seen people who have been successful in that program, but it's a program that is a pilot project because there are a number of people who are, because their addictions are so bad, they're going to fail, at least to some extent, and if people get into the program, you'd expect them to have problems trying to be drug-free, especially the first 2 or 3 months in the program, because they have addictions they're going to want to use. So, but overall, the program is about 10 years old. The idea is that it's going to try to reduce the cost of our jail cost economically by having less people go into jail and try to treat them so that they won't reoffend. You'd have to talk to Judge Beebe as far as there's actual statistics about recidivism, but what I've heard from the judge is that they contend that the recidivism rate is actually lower than what it is for drug defendants who don't participate in the program, but she would have those numbers better than I would.
Jerry, just to clarify, when you've only got 4 that graduated, the others, if they either are kicked out of the program or failed, their case just goes back through the system as a regular court case, correct?
It does. Well, to get into that program, they have to plead guilty to the criminal felony charge. So what would happen is that the judge then would sentence them if there is a contempt hearing, and the judge finds them in contempt for a violation. Then the judge would say, well, you're out of the program, now I'm going to sentence you for this violation, which could mean prison or a very significant jail time. So there are consequences for failing and getting removed from the program.
Thank you. Commissioners, Dave?
On the appellate briefs and the appeals argued, well, I guess what's the difference? I mean, you got, there's 260 approximately of briefs filed and only 12 argued. But
Well, the difference is that you have to file the brief. Sometimes oral argument gets waived, and so the judges will just decide it based on that written brief, as opposed to an oral argument. So that's the difference.
Julie, do you have your hand up?
I did, thank you. In regards to the Child Advocacy Center, once accreditation is given, you had mentioned that additional staff will be able to be brought on. Can I make the assumption then that that's through federal and or state grants, or do you see an adjustment in the budget?
Well, currently, yeah, we don't supply any funds for the CAC. That's through Catholic Charities and whatever grants they may get. But the hope is that with full accreditation, that they'll be eligible to apply for funding. I'm not sure if that's state or federal, but I know the idea is that they'll be able to get funding such to the extent that they could actually have full-time positions for their staff, which would be good for us because right now it's more or less, I would say, on a shoestring budget, and that means that you're always kind of going, whatever, month to month or year to year, wondering if the center is going to continue because of that funding issue.
Now, this is the second location for the Child Advocacy Center. Do you see that it's large enough to accommodate the number of children that are needing these services?
Well, currently we're at over 160 kids. Is a lot of kids. I see eventually probably the center probably expanding. There's talk that some other counties, such as Lenawee and Hillsdale, may use ours as a regional center. If that happens, we definitely will probably need a larger building.
Location. But currently, there is no expense, as you said, to the county. This is a donated building. Another nonprofit organization is allowing us to use their facilities, correct?
Correct. It operates under the nonprofit, the Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities has a relationship with the owner of that building. Doug Bieswinger has a nonprofit called Adam, Another Day, Another Memory,
Yes.
for parents of lost kids due to illness, for example. And so he's generously allowed Catholic Charities to use that building, so that's where we're at with that. So that, of course, that could always change in the future, but right now that's been working well, so.
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, Jerry.
Right. Thank you.
Next up is the Region 2 Planning Commission biannual report.
Just pull this out.
Grant.
Thanks. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
Greetings on this beautiful, damp summer morning. I'd first like to engage in a little bit of trash talk. That is a summary of the Solid Waste Planning Committee activities over the last 6 months. As I've said, we've conducted a lot of research over the past 6 months, developing goals and objectives, establishing a process, and selecting preferred several alternatives to be included in the solid waste management plan, and that included panel discussions with trash haulers, the landfill operators, and those public and private agencies involved in recycling throughout the county. We are just in the process of putting together a full draft plan for the committee over the next couple of months. We hope to have that process finalized by the end of the calendar year, and then that would put us on track to have the complete plan approved by the DEQ about this time next year, sometime during the summer of 2015. There has been, I know that there's been some frustration on the committee on some parts with how long the process is taking, but I would just like to remind everybody that we've got to make sure that we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed, because not only does that plan have to be approved by the Solid Waste Planning Committee, then it goes to the county board for its approval. After that, it goes to all of the municipalities within the county. I believe there are 27 or 28 cities, townships, and villages. At least 67% of those have to approve the plan before it can be adopted locally, and then it has to go to the director of the Department of Environmental Quality for final approval before we have a plan that we can operate under. Which is why I put in an attachment with the staff report that you received of the accomplishments of the Solid Waste Planning Committee, and then the timetable for completing the process. Next thing I'd like to talk about is our Jackson 2020 activities. Staff has continued to serve on the Jackson 2020 Steering Committee and to co-champion the Arts, Recreation, and Culture strand. And I am very happy to report that now that we have Scott Robbins on board, that he is co-championing our Parks, Recreation, and Environment work group, which is the last major component to have the full strand up and running, so I'm really excited about that. I've also undergone the Able Change training through Jackson 2020. You may recollect that Jackson 2020 is operating under the model of collective impact, while Able Change, which is above and below the line, Able Change, takes that a step further and helps and provides tools for finding the root causes for problems, and then also successful ways to engage the public so that we're making sure that we're identifying and answering the correct questions that need to be addressed. Through that training, I have been asked to also participate on the county's SIT committee, Strategic Implementation Team Committee, and also the Jackson 2020's Coordinating Council. And through that, in addition to the arts, recreation, and culture work that staff has been engaged in, we're now also engaged in the governmental and effectiveness and efficiency cohort of the county's strategic plan. In that, we're through the use of the County Planning Commission, where we're going to try and lead by example and improve cross-border planning and zoning efforts throughout the community within the efforts of the County Planning Commission. On a related note, staff has been working on an update to the joint recreation plan for the city of Jackson and Jackson County, and the County Planning Commission is also engaged in a new county master plan. As part of that effort, we're concentrating on developing a set of demographics for use in those two plans, as well as the county solid waste plan, and then that will also provide a template for demographic sections that could be included in municipal plans as they are updated over time, part of that leading by example process that I was talking about before. As far as the county joint recreation plan goes, staff has met with the directors of the city and county parks and recreation departments several times, and we've also met with the joint committee once, and that process is underway, and we hope to have a draft plan approved by the DEQ very early, to have that submitted to the DEQ, to the Department of Natural Resources, prior to New Year's, to have that approved at the state level early in January. And then that will provide ample opportunity for the county to develop any Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant applications that it wishes to submit to the Department of Natural Resources by the April 1st deadline for 2015. As far as economic development planning goes, the regional planning initiative grant process is moving forward. There will be an update of the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or SEDS, document this fall. As far as transportation goes, staff continues to shepherd the Jackson Area Comprehensive Transportation Study process, and also to coordinate with county law enforcement and other law enforcement agencies on the Jackson Traffic Safety Program, as the sheriff mentioned during his presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions? Comments? Hearing none. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Administrator Controller with the agreement with the Jackson Community Foundation.
We've been in discussions with the Jackson Community Foundation to be the fiduciary for the Cascades Champion Project, and they've agreed with this agreement that's before you today. The really only item of mention is there is a cost to do that, and it's 1.6% of the annual collected donations. And that is to administer and for the tax purposes and sending out tax documentation for the donators. And so that's really the only thing that's a little hard about this one. But the other thing I mentioned in the staff report is that this does not preclude us from being an applicant for grants from the foundation. And we have an application in right now that we feel very good about. And I've also been discussing with them some other opportunities in the form of them making a donation to the project that we can't discuss publicly right now, but they're very optimistic about it.
Questions? Julie?
And that 1.6 is the normal rate that is, what we consider to be a fair within a foundation of this nature? I'm just not familiar with that number, so I'm tossing it out there. Yes.
Yes, that's the
Thank
same
you.
number that the Center for Family Health was given, and they performed the same function for the Center for Family Health, which was an even larger project than this. And the only question which I haven't put up for debate in this item is, do we pay that out of donations or do we pay that out of other county dollars? The Center for Family Health decided to pay that out of non-donation dollars from the Center for Family Health directly, because it maximized the federal grants that they received, because it didn't reduce the amount. Yeah, so that's the reason they did it. Also, it's good to know that some donors don't have to pay an administrative cost to it. All their money goes to the project. But in speaking with several people from the Parks Board and the County Board, there's a feeling that we want to do that from maybe the county dollars that are donated. Regardless, it's all fungible. It comes from the money that go to that project, whether it's from actual donations from private citizens or from its county dollars appropriated to it. It has to be paid if we go this route.
So Adam, that part of it, that element is not spelled out in the agreement and could be decided at a later date, essentially?
That's correct, and it could be decided at a later date by this board, or the Parks Board can make a recommendation to it. Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments? And this is to move it on to the full board. If we could have a motion. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Adam. Other business, we have claims to pay. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. You have the other minutes there, August reporting schedule, and it takes us back to public comment. Public, you have 3 minutes if you'd like to make a comment. Going once. Gone. Committee member comments. Hearing none, we're adjourned.